thoughts for me, you guys? Anything that you're feeling, vibing, interested in answering? Anything?
I'm feeling good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'll say this real quick, that I remember I think it was the last day in the shop that we were filming. Super emotional day. Some tears were definitely shed, but I remember the year before that in January, when we really just didn't know like what we were gonna do. And we started praying specifically that God would send people that he's inspired with skill. And to think like where we are now a year later, and I definitely thought of this yesterday, and Heather took a screenshot for me, and we just got to kind of look at that after the meeting of just like, these are the people he sent that he's inspired with skill to like, to help us, like, you know, like, and the fact that like, it's like, this is real and this is happening, and like, that y'all are here for us. I will never forget this, and this is definitely a highlight of my 35 years on this earth, and just the fact that like, again, like I think no one here does it alone and survives and thrives, and y'all are just proof of that again. And so I do want to say thank you so much for not just having your skill and being good at it, but like applying all of that to us and for us, and coming alongside us with this thing. Just thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for letting us tell your story. Like I've said many times before, without you, we're just a bunch of dudes with cameras. So being able to be very open and share your story with us, really, we appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
This is such a different place from June, Jahmicah. Do you remember that? It was like a 3-hour conversation where we just like, blah, 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 and like, the world has changed in some fantastic
I was not
ways.
laughing after that conversation.
It was a very deep conversation.
Terrified. Yeah. And to think like now, like the joy that I feel just looking at the screen, it's a complete 180 because of y'all. So thank you.
Thank you.
I meant to ask Justin and Abdul, well, all of y'all, how long did you all film? How long were y'all in Texas?
6 days.
6 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, is it cool if we introduce our kids when we first start and then we send them off? I mean, to people that will care for them. Not just
Yeah.
myself.
That works.
Okay.
All right, we're at 6 o'clock. I might start some music and then let people in. How are people feeling about that?
Awesome.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Okay, let me know if you can hear this. Okay.
My mom is in there.
Good. All right, I'm gonna start letting them in.
Dirty South. Can y'all really feel us? East Coast feel us. West Coast feel us. Dirty South. Yeah. Can y'all really feel us?
Guys, Ales.
West Coast trying to come up, we got a lot of
Hi, Silas.
taking my chances like the lottery. Like the lottery. Trying to come up, we got a lot of dreams. Taking my chances like the lottery. Like the lottery. Billy had to get it from the jump. Knew I had to spit or hit a dunk. Me and all my homies in the yo, spilling out our dreams and microphones. Mama front the bill, she set it up. Nervous little boy, I couldn't front. Mama had to call the homie Smoke. Step into the booth and here we go. Got the footy loops off a line wide. Practice interviews, watching Narwhal. I was in love, I couldn't fake that. Me and my crew trying to crank that. We had the mass appeal inside the cafeteria, spitting raps about money and bad material. I was passionate, my homie passed the pen. We hit the grind and beat as they would gather in and call them battles, but we would all laugh as friends. And in the end, we go back to the class as kin. We were the hallway kings. most lit teens. One kiss from a chick, that's a big ring. Back then, walk it out was pristine. And the 3 stacks verse with the 16. Would've gave it all up just for this dream. Didn't know that God was listening. We got a lot of dreams. Yeah. Hey, taking my chances like the lottery. Like the lottery. Hey, trying to come up, we got a lot of dreams. Yeah. Hey, taking my chances like the lottery.
Hello, Sean from Austin. Thanks for tuning in. Where are you guys from? Drop where you're from in the comments.
Try to walk around with a smile on, play it real cool, but I couldn't put my heart aside. Couple years later, mama got sick. Now it's getting harder to be happy, spending every single second putting poems in a notebook. All my homies let me lonely.
Bend, Oregon. Bend, Oregon.
Writing down bars in the middle of the class. Told a girl about my
Even there. Shout out to Bend. I went to school at University of Oregon. I used to go there all the time. LA, San Francisco, Boise.
We've got Atlanta. We've got Asheville.
Seattle. Ducks. Hey, yes, go Ducks forever. Didn't do assignments, I would sell beats. Walking through the halls with my headphones on, not a dollar in my pocket, trying to come up on a mill. Scheming in the studio, plotting on a mill. I was flat from everybody, everywhere. Jahmicah, you see this? All these people, all over the world.
Yeah.
I'm from a place where you really don't stay, but you really never leave.
More Ducks.
Oh, Boulder. My favorite spot.
This is crazy.
I got this ticket that's right in my
Nice.
Brandon. Hey, Sarah.
Oh, hi, Sarah.
So next, Susan. So Jahmicah, you were in the article with Susan Clayton of White Paw's Run.
Oh, White Paw, yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So she's on the call. Susan's on the call. So hi, Susan.
I'm trying to like cook dinner and clean up at the same time. So I'm trying not to be like all this crazy stuff going on at the same time. But hi, everyone. Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Can you say hi?
This is Fairfax. Wow.
Julie. Look, Julie.
Oh.
Hey, Greg is in the chat. Wonder Camp Greg.
Greg,
The
hey.
shooter. The
Can you
guy
guys hear
behind
me?
the camera.
Hi, Greg.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Whoa.
Greg.
How's it
What's up,
going?
Greg?
Good.
You see Greg?
Hello, hello, hello.
Is that Tim?
Oh, what's up, Timmy?
Hey everybody.
Is Davis with you too?
Yeah.
He's out in the snow somewhere.
Oh,
Is
you
he?
got the whole game.
Remember the
Yeah,
guy?
like, I don't know if you can see this mess, but it's a lot of stuff.
Jeez.
Wow.
This is our.
Oh my gosh.
Are y'all in Colorado right now?
Yeah, it's really cool here.
That's very cool.
Good to see y'all though.
We're gonna start our backcountry portion of that.
Good to see you.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Greg and Tim and Davis are part of Wonder Camp, the people that shot this documentary with us. Shout out to them. And Yeehaw Donkey fame as well.
You know what, Justin, Abdul, I still have to like consciously kind of remember that like y'all aren't a part of Wonder Camp. And really just because like the chemistry was just so organic and yeah, it was just like I have to kind of consciously, like even when we're texting in the group message, like, oh yeah, like they're, you know, they're separate. So
Yeah, we have a
We're not
group.
part of the team, but we're part of the family. So
Right.
it's all in one. You know?
That's a wholesome answer, Justin.
that's a t-shirt. Brian, can we make that a t-shirt?
I know, right?
Love it. Love it.
Anchorage, Alaska.
It's like our kids that were on Zoom. Or, how rude of them. Huh?
They're about to go with it.
San Pedro. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And also, Heather and Jahmicah, Danica Carey from Cirrus is on the chat.
Danica.
Yeah. So, but yeah, lots of people. It's amazing. It's touching to see. I mean, everybody all over the country, right? Like we've hit all time zones at this point.
That's crazy.
So Danica, you should know today our water got turned off, and I was out in my in-laws' front yard digging a hole trying to find the valve, and I had my serious gloves on, and found it, and we turned it off. So, and I really was thinking, I was like, these gloves are so dope. Like, there was no way I'd be digging in that hole with my bare hands. All right, buddy.
That's the smoothest ad read I've ever seen before.
That was a great ad read.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still got a couple people sort of.
Hey, Francis, Joseph.
Yeah, we've got a couple people piling in, but
95. Wow.
Yeah. Give it another second or two, I think, and then we'll get ready and get started. So thank you all for joining us. I just want to say, like, we appreciate you being here, and I'll let Heather and Jahmicah talk in a few minutes, but like, thank you for all of your support and giving us part of your afternoon or evening to hear about an incredible shop and the artists that captured sort of the zeitgeist of this place and everything it stands for. So yeah. Okay, so just to go ahead and sort of run through a couple of things related to setup that might help you in this area. We encourage you to turn off other distractions so that you can give this topic all of your attention for the next hour. And we encourage you to leave your video on so we can all feel like we're sharing a space and an experience together and supporting the community here. So feel free to use the chat as another way to share your thoughts and engage with others. We are monitoring that just like we did when people came in and shared where they were from and things like that. So we'll be sort of bouncing back and forth between the two. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that this is a safe space. This space is striving to be a safe space that celebrates voices and experiences that have historically been marginalized and excluded. So we ask folks in that when contributing in the chat, be mindful that we communicate in ways that center those voices, that supports them and helps them feel seen, valued, and heard. Any comments and individuals that harm will not be allowed to stay in this webinar. And then lastly, at the end, we're going to do a moderated Q&A. If you would like to ask your question live at the end, please send it privately to Noelle Russell. The moderator, I'll call on people at the end to ask their question live to Heather, Jahmicah, Justin, and Abdul. So the next thing I want to do now that we have some of that taken care of is thank the brands and participants and welcome you all to this space. So I want to thank Heather and Jahmicah of Slim Pickins Outfitters. They're with us today. And then the Outbound Collective is here and one of their representatives will speak in a moment. And then Wonder Camp. And that's what they were talking about, sort of part of the team, part of the family. Justin and Abdul worked in that partnership to create those things. And then we have a presenting sponsor tonight. I'm rocking a little bit of the gear, Hoka One One. And then we have two other supporting sponsors, or we have several other supporting partners, KOA, Visit Florida, and Sawyer. So that's sort of the end. I'm gonna invite Brian Hefferon from the Outbound Collective to speak for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Latria. I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everyone for being here and being part of this tonight, and obviously for all of your work on the film. I think kind of as we've seen the solidarity and the support from the community pour in, it's been pretty amazing, you know, and like overwhelming. And I think that's really a testament to, I think, Jahmicah and Heather, your work and your spirit. And then obviously Justin and Abdul being able to, I think, capture and share their story in such a beautiful way. I think it's really resonated. And I think it also reinforces something that Jahmicah, I think you said so like perfectly in the film, that I think it's past time, right, for your shop and for this film. And I think for creating a real sense of urgency to change this outdated narrative of what it means to find belonging in the outdoors and who actually belongs in the outdoors, right? And I think that's what our film series is about. And that's kind of why we started, I think, working on these films a couple of years ago, because we want to share stories that I think are more reflective of the outdoors that we know and that we see kind of on a daily basis, right? And more reflective of the communities that we grew up in too, you know? And so like we're committed to continuing to, I think, challenge and change that narrative and to build a more inclusive home for a modern outdoors, you know? And I think like all of the outpouring of support that we've seen kind of coming from across the globe and everyone that's attending this, it's been amazing and so well deserved, you know, for you all, and also like really heartening, because I think what it tells us is that there are a lot of people out there who have the shared vision for a better future, you know, and to me that's super exciting, you know, and I feel like we can really feel that with the messages that were, you know, on the GoFundMe page and all the kind messages we've been receiving. So I just want to say thank you all again for working with us on this, for sharing your story, for telling such a beautiful story, and for being our partners and building a better and more inclusive outdoors. So thanks.
Thank you for that. So I don't think that we can have the conversation we're going to have tonight without doing a land acknowledgement. So I'm going to take a few moments to do that now. So tonight we're going to talk about the outdoors, race, liberation, survival, and other topics intrinsically tied to the land. We cannot talk about these things without being mindful of the fact that the places that we inhabit are not our own. As we seek to understand our place in the history of this country, we must recognize that our engagement with these spaces in which we live and recreate are bound up with the people who have lived on this land for generations and consider it sacred. My home resides on Catawba land, and today I'm coming to you from the low country of South Carolina, which is ancestral Yamasee land. And I'll give the panelists the opportunity to speak to their land acknowledgements.
We are on Comanche land in Central Texas.
Justin and I own Duwamish land in Seattle, Washington.
Thank you all for that. And in order to try to keep this as a collaborative conversation, at the very beginning of the chat, we asked people to introduce themselves by names, pronouns, and their own land acknowledgement, sort of speaking to the land that you're on. So we're keeping up with that conversation in the chat on the side too, if you would also like to participate in that. And then we also had a question, what's the one thing nature has done this week to make you smile? I know everybody's it's a vast country, lots of variety this week. I know some people have some very cold weather right now, and we're thinking of you all in Texas, because I know that it's a difficult situation for many people, and I want to take a moment and honor that right now. But if we, I think we've taken care of everything. So like now it's time to talk shop. And I'm really excited about that part, you know? Before this ever was made, before the four of you came together, Justin and Abdul, you all were separate sort of filmmakers in Seattle. But when I was going through your portfolio ahead of this talk, I realized that your work either accesses or engages nature in some way. How did your previous experiences in the outdoors set up the way that you told the story of Slim Pickins?
So Abdul and I both reside in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest to be exact, in Seattle, Washington. And there's just a lot of nature out here. So kind of naturally, a lot of what we do has been on some sort of outdoors land or in the mountains or on the water. But surprisingly enough, Abdul and I both didn't really have a lot of experience with the outdoors before this. And that's kind of what makes this experience unique. And I'll let Abdul talk to that as well. But one thing about this whole journey was the fact that at the same time we're telling this story about opening up the space in the outdoors for Black spaces and for people from marginalized communities, Jahmicah was teaching people from those communities things that we never learned before. Me and Abdul had never fly fished before. We had never really gone on like major hikes. And so, you know, a lot of that stuff was new to that. And Abdul, I'd let you talk about that as well. But Yeah.
It was a very meta experience to go out to make a story about representation in the outdoors and to, for the first time, fly fish, like Justin said, and experience all that. I grew up in Kenya personally before I moved to Seattle. And while I was in Kenya, I got to experience the outdoors a little bit. But I feel like once I moved to Seattle, I think it's different. The outdoor that you experience in Kenya is different from the outdoors that you experience over here. And I felt like I was holding on to that experience that I had in Kenya. So I never really fully gave into the outdoor experience of the Pacific Northwest. But this documentary definitely changed my perception on it and has made me want to embrace this a bit more instead of vying for what I had back home. Just embrace the change that we have here, and they can both be good in their own ways.
Yeah. So you all have both touched a little bit on the landscapes and the idea that you're in the Pacific Northwest, and you take this journey to Central Texas, to Stephenville, Texas, right? And I think you make some interesting choices at the beginning of this film, right? And we can't talk about the story without talking about place and the mythology, right? Everybody's like, don't mess with Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. Like there's all of these sayings and even if you've never been to Texas, you're given Friday Night Lights and some of these other images, and you all sort of play with that. In the beginning, you've got cowboys and football. You say it's cowboy capital of the world, and then you start eroding things when you introduce Jahmicah and Heather and this landscape and this beautiful river that you learn to fly fish in. So some of this is about misgivings. What did you know about Texas before you came to do this film in Stephenville? And what surprised you? And then Jahmicah and Heather, after this, I want to know what enchants you about where you live, because it's visually stunning. So yeah, Justin, Abdul, I'll let you start.
It was definitely my first time in the South, in like Texas South. I'd been to North Carolina one time before that, but my impression was everything that I thought that you would think it was as like a Black man from the city. Rural Texas is not what I would assume welcoming to people of my kind, similar to what Jahmicah talked on in the documentary. And there was a little bit of fear going into it, especially at the climate of the political times. And it was during the election week, actually. And so we got to see a little bit of the tension out there, and it was really eye-opening. A lot of times we paint Seattle as like kind of like an echo chamber that everybody feels the same way, or a lot of people feel like we have similar views. And we were taken to a place that our views were almost a minority, and we learned a lot. And everything is bigger, the people are louder, the food sizes are bigger. Even things like getting a drink, the drinks are like this big. It doesn't make sense. In Seattle, we don't drink coffee more than 16 ounces. I don't know. Everything about it was different for us. How'd you feel, Abdul?
Justin kind of touched on everything. I didn't eat a single vegetable while I was down there. I wasn't really complaining about that one, but it definitely felt different. This was my first time in Texas myself, and me and Justin had a conversation before we went out there. It's like, all right, when we're filming, we'll be outside. As soon as we're not filming, we're going to be back in the Airbnb, and let's make sure we don't get into any trouble at all. And it was different than what I expected. I was expecting a bit more hostility, especially being a Black person in rural Texas during election season. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And I actually got to meet some incredible people and kind of form some relationships that I didn't expect to be making. So I think it's safe to say I would have never gone to Strong, Texas if it wasn't for this documentary, but I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I got to meet the people there.
That makes sense. I mean, y'all have already teased a little bit of it out, right? The fact that this is taking place during the election cycle, some of the fears that you had, everything that happened this summer. I don't think we can ignore the social justice issues that raised their head and the resulting violence against Black people that came out of this, or at least was brought to light because of this. So in this conversation, we're not going to shy away from talking about terror or exclusion, because you didn't in the film, right? Oh, sorry, I realized just Heather and Jahmicah, I cut you off and did not allow you to say what enchants you about your area of Texas. I want to do that and give you all that space. And then we will jump back into this question. I apologize about that.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, so I think, and really Justin and Abdul kind of touched on it. What's enchanting of our area for us is that I think it's captivating in a way that people can come from different places and experience a land that has, I think, so much to offer. And I think it's, as far as like a landscape, that can then kind of encourage them to go back when they get back to their local area to go and kind of pursue the outdoors more. And I think there's so much, especially in Texas, it's not really known for like a lot of public lands. And so it gives me definitely a more of an appreciation and a gratefulness when I get to be on public land, number one, but when I get to be on public land with family and friends, I mean, that just, that supersedes expectation. And so that's really cool that, like, I mean, since then, Justin and I have talked, and Abdul as well, of like, hey, since I've been back, I've gone on several hikes and stuff like that. That's really cool that it kind of stirs your affections up for the outdoors, I think, in a way that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get kind of, wherever you're from. So.
It's really interesting too. Seattle has such amazing spaces for the outdoors. And I think just being like kind of contrived in the city and not, obviously, like access is a big thing about all of this. And like, depending on the community and the people that you surround yourself with, you may not have a lot of this access. And it was really interesting coming back from Seattle and just like looking at the space differently, because there's so many places to hike. There's so many places to go, like swim in a river or in a lake. There's a ton of mountains to go, like snowboarding and skiing on. And it was just really cool to like take what we learned in a rural space and be able to apply it to a space that's like actually known for the outdoors, because I was sleeping on like one of the most beautiful spots in America for the outdoors, to be honest.
This sounds like an ad read, but I promise it's not. Going outdoors with Hoka gear definitely makes it much easier. I used to go hiking in my Roshis and just slides and whatnot. And I feel like part of my neglect of wanting to go outdoors was it was so uncomfortable, but wearing my new shoes and my new sweater, available now at hoka.com, has been really great. And
yeah, I mean, that's part of like the gear shop experience in some ways, right? Though, is like you can find things customized to you or that suit your needs, that ameliorate some of the things that we think are uncomfortable about being outside, if it's too cold or things like that. So like it's Abdul, I'll let you take the host seat, my guy. Like, it's right, you may be doing a better job than me on that one, but like it's important, that we talk about some aspect of that. So yeah, Heather, did you want to add anything else about sort of the enchanting area of Texas?
Yeah, so I think growing up here, Jahmicah and I actually live back in my hometown now. We live in a really like a town of 600 people, and I think what is enchanting about this area is for all the negatives and all the poor use of words and people that we're around. There are such good people here, and I think the people here do enchant us. And I really was thinking about like this summer in June, right on the heels of the George Floyd murder, I gave birth to our second son, and our home felt in turmoil and we were excited about a new baby and grieving and scared and all of that, and we couldn't have people over because of COVID, and we have a brand new baby, and but people were leaving meals on our porch and checking on us, like our neighbors, and those people, they do love us and they do care about us. And like the truth is, there is like cowboys and football and all of that, and to be frank, some of those people are jerks, but some of those people will give you the shirt off their back. And so being able to just love those people and have those people love us is a really incredible part of living in this area. It really is. I don't want anybody to be scared off of from Texas, because there is good people. There is good people here. I went to a really small school, you can tell.
Well, it's definitely kind of more, like a shadows proves the sunshine kind of scenario. Yes, the negative is, it comes to our doorstep, it comes to our TV screens and to our phones, but like, because of that, I think it kind of, at least for us, we yearn to seek out, those rays of sunshine in our area, and we are fortunate enough that, like, I think those people kind of gravitate to us, and so that's definitely something that we enjoy. And even the time Heather's talking about, we had neighbors that knew I loved to fly fish and offered up, their space. Hey, I don't really fish, but I've got a creek down down on my property. You're welcome to just go out. And I took them on it because I needed to get outside because of all of the turmoil that was happening.
The newborn baby.
Yeah, definitely for that too. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you all for sharing that. So I realized a moment ago I'd gotten ahead of myself, but I do want to sort of come back to that, because there are two, the shadow and sunshine metaphor is, I think, in Act 1 in some ways. But you all don't shy away from talking about terror and exclusion in this film. We get the imagery of the Confederate flag early on, which obviously is very much a choice. And Jahmicah, you talk about one of the earliest memories you have of the N-word. For Black people, engagements like these are the frames for our experiences, unfortunately. And perhaps the struggle to move beyond that, for many to move beyond that, doesn't happen for a lot of reasons. And this question can be for anyone that wants to answer, because I think we've all had our moments of fear and hesitation in the outdoors. But I'll start with you, Jahmicah. I'd love for you to talk about the transition towards seeing the outdoors as a place where, in your words in the film, the water washes your worries and woes away.
Yeah, so something that and I think even since the film and watching it, and something that I just kind of come to realize is that, like, the outdoors never excluded me, right? It were people, quote unquote, representing and ambassadors of the outdoors that kind of conveyed, let's just call it what it is, this hate. And so, and it hasn't really, we still had some of those experiences, but for me and Heather, something that's been really powerful for us is to kind of reclaim that space for us, reclaim that space for our enjoyment and for our health, and reclaim that space, honestly, for our kids, so that they know, as they're coming up, we have these shared experiences and these beautiful experiences in the outdoors, and that is a place for them. And so, you representing, you talking about that specific issue or part in the film, I can even think back to is when Heather and I were dating, and we were at this state park in pretty close to our area, and we were just out wading in the water, and someone driving over the bridge saw us and yelled the word again. And then in the first year of us opening the shop, I was taking out the trash, and a group of people rode by and used the word again. And something I thought back to is that, like, when I was younger, I think how I responded to that was in a different way, and definitely since I've matured and again kind of grown into my I guess comfortability in the outdoors, there's no one's gonna make me feel inept. No one's going to try to exclude me, my family, my kids from there now. And so that was those are both signs of me as a grown man experiencing those things. And now, like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this, like, we're enjoying this space as a couple, and we're enjoying this space and enjoying the outdoors and outdoor store as a family. This is ours.
Thank you for that. I don't know if anyone else wants to answer the question. If not, no worries. I will move on to the next. Justin.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't have as much of a connection growing up with the outdoors and like feeling necessarily restricted, but I did just want to give a big shout out to Wonder Camp, because in the film industry, I think there's a very similar pattern of like feeling like people of color don't have access, or maybe don't have the right tools or equipment or like paywall to be able to enter. And when we started this project, I was a little nervous to take on such a big project, and Wonder Camp just reassured me that I was ready and that I could do this, and me and Abdul could do this project. And it's spaces like that where you're opening up the space and allowing people who may not have had the opportunity before to enter and do what they like, instead of, you know, something that Jahmicah and I talked a lot about is like, people like us need help, but we want help that helps us and benefits us, not help that benefits somebody else and makes them feel like, you know, they're like the savior. And so similarly, that Jahmicah is like opening up these spaces in Texas and in other areas to help allow access for people like us. I just wanted to give a big shout out to Wonder Camp for allowing Abdul and I to do the same thing in the film industry. Because like I said, yeah, I may not relate necessarily for the outdoors, but the film industry is very similar as far as like who's involved and access to get in.
Yeah, to echo what Justin said, I feel like since the summer, there's been a lot of conversations about being an ally and how to be a proper ally. And I feel like Wonder Camp being able to recognize that this is a story about a Black man and to bring in 2 Black filmmakers to tell that story and just provide assistance. They've been nothing but very helpful and very kind and very welcoming to their space to help us tell their story. So yeah, extra shout out to them for recognizing what needs to be done and not only recognizing it, but doing it.
You know, with that, like when Greg from the Wonder Camp was first telling me about just this concept and telling me about Justin Abdul, like, you know, we're partnering with 2 Black filmmakers. It's like, yeah, that just makes sense. Almost to say like, and I don't know anything about the film industry. Why wouldn't you? But like, it wasn't until them getting here and again getting kind of hear some of their story of like, this isn't something that's normally done. And I think that added, I think, just another layer of, I'll just say, like, it just made it that much more precious to us, to the fact that like, that this was kind of breaking barriers in multiple ways, not just about us in the outdoors, but about Justin Abdul and the film industry as well.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Thank you all for sharing that, because I think it sort of ties to the next question here about reclamation and allyship, right? And so Jahmicah and Heather, in some ways, you've created an oasis, or what seems, at least in the film, like an oasis, right? When we come in as viewers for what might have been seen as some people as, you know, hostile territory. You know, this question is about community building, because like Justin Abdul, we're talking about Wonder Camp doing that, and y'all are very much doing this in the center of Texas. Like, how can people, it's the idea of replicating this reclamation and allyship in other places. Like, how can people who have a desire to see their locales become more welcoming places? How do those folks help build accepting spaces? And Justin Abdul, y'all can answer this too.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say one thing, in our shop and in our home and wherever we take up space, if someone comes into our space and into our midst, they are the most important person. They are the only important thing at that time. And there are times that that's really hard to do when there's deadlines to meet and things to get done. But what we've started to notice is people come back and they don't necessarily want to buy anything. They don't necessarily really maybe even need to talk to us about anything. They just want to come back in the doors because they felt heard and seen for a little bit. And there are days that Jahmicah comes home and didn't get a thing done at the shop on the back end, but the people mattered and the people were important. And if you are so lucky to have a conversation with my husband, you will, I mean that, you will know that you are, when you're talking, nothing else is going on. Like, you are the most important thing. And he's done such a good job building community like that. And that's why people just come in our doors all the time, because they want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, they want to feel important. And that's something that we did in our home before we opened the shop. And now we're able to do it in our shop. So.
You know, I think just to speak on that, it's like, once we have this kind of access, and again, just with the thought of community, like, I would just say, it sucks if you're only there for yourself and by yourself. And so that's something even that we do with our community groups and our community engagement, our community events. The whole focus of it is that it's run by the community. We're just a platform. We want community members to come and teach that skill. We always say that we want to learn about things from people who are passionate about those things. And so, like, come and bring your passion in, and we can be that platform for you to be able to kind of speak, maybe not to the world, but at least to your local community, and show, first of all, know, and then show that you bring value. Like, you are intrinsically important to what we're trying to do, both in our local community, but also the outdoors, because that's how we felt. I think definitely with this, that's how people have made us feel. And so how do we replicate that? I think it's, now that we have this access, to be able to give people that haven't had this access before, again, that same opportunity, to come into our doors, to come and be able to lead out, and show, and speak on and teach on things that they're passionate about involving the outdoors.
Yeah, I think a big part about allyship right now, and kind of creating a welcoming space, is also like leaving your ego at the door, and understanding that when you're in a space that's not yours, like, you may think you understand it, but you never fully will, because that's not your space. And I think oftentimes something that happens when we talk about allyship and people wanting to, give and be a part of it, is that they feel like through shared experience that they understand, and that they see eye to eye. And it can be, like, really insulting, because in the back end, we understand that, like, we live in this Black body every single day. And there's shared experience between us that nobody else in this world has. And in my opinion, the strongest people who I've had, is when it comes to allyship, have been people who have been able to really leave that at the door, and understand that, like, they're in a space that is not theirs, and just do everything they can to kind of be a vessel to let that space speak on its own. And again, I think I got a little bit ahead on my last conversation about Wonder Camp, but I think they're a great example of, like, how to really just let somebody else almost own something while you're a part of that space, without really kind of trying to take over. Especially when storytelling and things of that nature. I've been in a lot of situations where there's an extra hand right outside that's just like, hey, why don't we do this instead? And not listening to the people who really understand the story from, like, a more of an interpersonal way. And so I just think that's, like, a super important thing. And then sharing, if you want to be somebody who welcomes in these communities, you have to be willing to share, and you have to be willing to, buy that piece from Slim Pickins and not from Amazon, and then be able to share that online and say, hey, this is where I got this at. You should support this Black business. Because we can tell each other in our own circles, but unless, we're all spreading it outwards, it's going to be that same echo chamber, like I was talking about earlier.
I got nothing to add. I feel like y'all covered everything. Maybe to echo what Jahmicah and Heather said, I think community is a very big part of it. Speaking specifically within film in Seattle is really, really small. And in order to build that welcoming space, just being friendly and being approachable on that one time that you work with whoever you're working with for the first time builds a sense of community, because the chances of you working with that person again are really, really high. So fostering a fun environment for people to come and feel like they're having a good time and they're getting work done is really, really important. And I feel like that translates to whatever you do. Just make people feel comfortable and they'll want to come back.
That makes sense. Thank you all for sharing that. Y'all basically eviscerated my next question in some ways, but it's good. It's good. It naturally flowed into this because in some ways we're all on the screen and we know one another fairly well because there are, no Black people in our industries. Like 1% of less than 1% of editors in this industry identify as Black. There are very few Black businesses in the outdoor industry running gear shops or even outdoor adjacent things. Less than 5% of filmmakers in America identify as Black, right? In some ways we feel very much like unicorns, or I don't know if you want to use that word. I would be curious about the word that you would use, but like you all are hearing some of the frustrations and red tape. And I want the people listening to this call to understand that we are the exception and not the rule, and to get a firm handle on these numbers. Because like I'm grateful that this is happening and that the numbers are getting larger, but the numbers are very, very small right now. So I just kind of wanted to make space to acknowledge that a little bit. And I mean, we've talked a little bit about the frustrations, right, of sort of being in this industry and a little bit of the red tape, both in the film and just sort of us talking about some of those numbers now. But I want to hear a little bit of what's giving you hope in the moment. And that's questions for everybody.
I can go first, so y'all don't steal my answers. I've been working as an electrical engineer for the longest time until last August when I got laid off, and I made the transition to filmmaking full time. And I think until I worked on this project in Texas, I was always in this gray area to, am I taking a break from engineering? Is this just going to be a 1 month thing where I make a couple of YouTube videos and then I'll go back to engineering? And one thing that really gave me hope was the reception that I received from this documentary that came out. I feel like this is the first time a lot of people in my life had seen me as a filmmaker. I've always been the engineer that does videos on the side, and to be able to fully embrace my role as a producer, a film producer, has really given me hope to be able to do what I want in the future and not just go back to engineering because it's what I got my degree in, or it's because it's what my parents wanted me to do. I can actually find what I like to do, find what I'm good at, and be happy.
Similar to Abdul, I'd been through a lot of, not 100% sure on where I was going to go career-wise. And I think something about this that to me has given me hope is being able to tell stories like this. I think something you talked on earlier was that we are the exception and not the rule. And Jahmicah is a great example of like displaying Blackness on something that's not shown through stereotypical norms and through what we normally see on TV. And that's always been my goal, is to just show like Black people, like your Black uncle down the street and your cousin, and you know what I mean, the mailman and the man who runs the small business, and not just like the stereotypical fronts that we've been kind of like spoon fed through media. And so being able to tell stories like this, and it's opening up more doors to be able to tell more stories about Black people doing incredible things all over the world, is like something that's given me so much hope. And I can definitely attest to Abdul. I remember him calling me when this actually came out, and it was like he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he produced it. And I was like, bro, you killed it. Like, you did that. This was you produced the hell out of this. And he was like, you're right, I did. And it was this, I like saw this click in his head that I was like, bro, you're just as much a part of this. And it's really cool to hear that you feel that way, Abdul, because that's what this is all about. We're all being able to uplift all of each other.
You want to go? Oh, okay. So, like several things. The support and the response, the encouragement, the purchases, the donations, all of that has yes, just given us hope. And we feed off of that. Like we continually feed off of that. And another thing that gives us hope, and my wife said it, that like, you know, we want to, one of the reasons we're doing this is that so our sons coming up don't see Black outdoor shops, Black filmmakers, Black editors as the anomaly. And the cool thing about it is that, like, yes, the numbers might represent that now, but to our sons and to our sons' perspective, being able to meet Justin and Abdul and be able to feel that their love and I think they're passionate about the film, and some of the things that you couldn't see was Silas is very curious, and, you know, what's that? And you know, Abdul just kind of picking him up to the camera and showing him this, or Justin kind of taking him along while he's getting a shot there. That's some of the things that make us hopeful that, like, I mean, I would love for our sons to take over the shop, but they just saw two other options of filmmaking and directing and being an editor. So, like, now those opportunities are opened up to them at this young age, at this such an impressionable age now. And I think also then, but back to the shop, that like people support this, people are behind this. And so, like, I always remember kind of back to my, when I was coming up, I was just passionate about things that I didn't see a lot of Black people in. I loved horses, I loved agriculture and stuff like that. And my parents weren't the type of parents that would tell me I could do anything. They were just the type of parents that they never told me I couldn't. And so, like, so then my world, I guess my world of possibility was always just this vast thing of, like, if I'm passionate about it, like, I'm going to try to pursue that. And so that's something that definitely makes me hopeful about, yes, the outdoors and I think the outdoor industry, but again, because of the people we've gotten to work with, now our kids see all these other options that are available to them.
Agree.
That's a good one. Like, that's, I mean, seeing it from the kids' perspective is incredible. So really quickly, I want to remind you all that you can drop questions in the chat. And then I've got 2 more questions for them, and then we're going to go live and y'all can ask your questions. I want to thank you guys for your patience and all this. This discussion has been incredible. And I'm sad. I want to respect everyone's time. And that's the only reason that we're going to taper off, because, like, I'm nosy. I want to know what you're streaming. Just email me the Spotify playlist for the shop, right? And for the film. Like, we'll get there. But one question that I want to ask you all is, like, and you all have started talking about it, but, like, every project, not everything makes it into the final film, right? There are lots of moments that don't make it. And so I want to know a moment that each of you will carry with you for the rest of your days that the audience didn't get to see.
I have one specific one in mind. When we were filming at the lake with Jahmicah's brother and his dad, Silas was there with us. I'm not sure if we got it on camera, but Silas decided to start yelling out Jahmicah instead of dad. And he would just do it over and over and over again for like 20 minutes. I'm not sure why he decided to address him by his government name, but it just became a thing. And I was hoping to see some of it in the final cut. It wasn't there, but just know that happened.
Still a thing, by the way. I don't know.
Well, and he calls us both honey all the time. Hey, honey. Hey, honey. We're like, no, you're not a 50s house husband. You don't get to do that. I know for me, a moment I will never forget is we were standing in the shop. We hung on to those guys as long as they would stay. They were done filming and we were like, well, don't you guys need to go eat? And they were done eating and we were like, don't you need to get a little more film at the shop? Like, we wanted them there as long as they could possibly be there. They were such a breath of fresh air. And then as they were leaving, we got pictures and they held the boys, our babies, and we took pictures with them. And then me and Jahmicah were both just sobbing. And we told them, like, at the 2019 was a very tumultuous year for us, just in our business life and also in our personal life. And we had just lost a pregnancy, and these guys came in, and we had prayed at the end of 2019, God, just send people that are that are inspired people with skill, that are going to be passionate about what we're doing. And they showed up and they answered it, and we just bawled telling them thank you, thank you so much. And I think we knew then that they were going to be our friends for life. Yeah. And I think we also knew that the trajectory of our lives had changed from meeting those men in that room. And it was a really impactful moment. And then they left, and I just sat on the bench in our shop and cried for another 5 or 10 minutes. I was like, I just have to pull myself together. But it's a moment that we've talked about a lot as a couple. So.
No, you go first, Justin.
No, go ahead. You're in the same square.
Oh,
you got to finish it off.
Oh, okay. Is that Zoom etiquette? Is that a rule?
It is now.
Okay, all right. So it was during, we were filming one day at the shop, and it was, again, kind of it was around election time, and there was we'll just say it was a parade around the square, and it was, it was a moment, I think, that, and it wasn't got on film, but it was a good moment for us. And I remember putting my arm around Heather and saying, like, this is one of the reasons why we're here. Like, this is a community that we're called to love and serve and try to bring something that we think is valuable here, or really try to draw it out. And that was I think it was a tough moment, but it was also, like, in a weird way, like an encouraging moment, because I don't know, I think it just kind of like affirmed, like, like why we were here, and also what
it made us mean it.
Yeah.
I mean, it made us mean that this
is where we're at, and,
yeah,
and this is kind of where God has us, and like these are the people that we are, and I guess a part of it came in the film of, people are flying these different flags, and I could care less about the flags. Like, I'm here for the people behind those, and I want to connect with those people, and have been connecting with those people, so that maybe one day that they don't choose a flag, whatever name's on it, to identify with, or like the relationships. So.
I was just gonna say, piggybacking off of what Heather said, I remember getting in the car right after that and asking the team, I was like, is that normal? Like, do y'all usually have this like this big of a connection and difficulty like leaving? And they were like, no, I think that's the first time everybody cried. And it was definitely just like it kind of is a closing moment of like how important it was to all of us. It was like a very special moment. But for me, one of the coolest things was going to Heather's family's house. We weren't able to get this in the film because we didn't know how to like get this huge fire to make sense in this film. But when they talk about Texas being big, I've never seen a bonfire that was this. It's the size of my apartment. I'm not kidding. It was the size of my apartment. And you could see it from the front yard over the house. You could see the flames going up in the air, and me and Abdul are like, what the hell is that? And they're like, oh, it's the bonfire, come to the back. And I have a picture on my Instagram of Greg and I shooting this bonfire, and it takes over 50% of the screen. It's the biggest bonfire I've ever seen. And we got to spend the night just hanging out with their family and getting to know them, and understanding that this whole idea of like building community and opening space, from Heather's side, like is deeply rooted through her family as well. And a lot of what Jahmicah was saying on the camera, I think clicked with me after spending time with her family, and kind of understanding that it wasn't just like the sore thumb of the family who felt differently. It was like their whole family felt the same way about representation and about, opening this space up for people like Jahmicah and I. And it was a really important moment. I wish it could have made in the film, but it's like one of the coolest things that I experienced while I was there. big old fire.
We might use it in Slim Pickins too, so stay tuned.
There we go.
That's a good lead in to my last question in some ways, right? We are waiting on Slim Pickins, the sequel. Thank you very much. You guys get on that, please. I was like, I'll add please at the end. But like everybody that's tuned in tonight, over 100 people, right? They're all invested in this story. And many people are gonna ask what they can do from where they are. So this question is for all of you. What does support look like moving forward? What would be helpful to you, to each of you?
I can go first. I think just something that I've noticed that has happened a lot since I've made the transition into filmmaking full time is I have people like Justin and other people within my life that bring my name up in rooms that I'm not. So if they're working on a project and they think that I would enjoy working on this project, say, hey, I know Abdul, he's a great producer. I think he'd be good at this. And I feel like support is just presenting opportunity to people that you know would enjoy it, that would kill it, but wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do so.
It's a great way to explain it. I think support is something that I think is kind of a reactive thing going on right now because of the climate of politics and everything that happened last year. And so I think just remembering to continue to support. Slim Pickins isn't the only thing. This documentary isn't the only piece that Abdul and I will work on together. This isn't the only item that Slim Pickins and Jahmicah and Heather will be a part of. And I think if you guys are, interested in supporting the people in the story and the people who created the story, it would be to continue to support outside of just that story. Shameless plug, Just in Focus is my website and my Instagram. Same as Abdul, if you need a director or a DP, that's what I do. And, just continue to support outside of your circle as well. If somebody brings up they need new outdoor gear or they need a director or a producer or an editor, we're in a panel full of people who could fulfill that for them who may not have had that opportunity before. So just like Abdul was saying, just spread the word and continue to support this. This movement will only go on as long as we continue to support. As soon as all of the allyship and all of the support from the outside ends, it collapses. So just continue to support and continue to uplift us all.
Yeah, I think something about, yes, this film, because that's what this is about, but even again, in this time right now, and I've seen several people, whether it be on social media or whatever, talking about like, well, what's gonna happen a year from now when this is no longer like a trending thing? And I think when we're talking about allyship, like allyship doesn't have an expiration date. Like this is like allyship is a life change. And so, for us, obviously, I love how Justin said earlier, making the intentional decision to come and purchase from us. If we don't have the product, giving us maybe an opportunity to try to source that. But also, time will tell. I think time will tell how well, I think how well or how meaningful this meant to people. Because it is something that's popular right now, and we're grateful for it. Amen for that. But again, we've been mentioning them because they're our kids, but people here watching. I know my sister. I think of my niece. Like what is the climate going to be like when that she continues to grow up in? And so I think like again, allyship does not have an expiration date. And neither does support, and it's about being intentional and kind of not just having a change of mind, but like a change of lifestyle. We've been getting some really cool messages. One that I'll share, and this is from someone local. He had made a comment. He's a personal friend from ours, and he told me a story. He said, "Hey, I was at my house with my grandpa, and something came on TV, and there was this black couple on TV. Oh no, interracial couple on TV, and my grandpa just made a comment. He said, and I didn't say anything, and he said a couple minutes later, my grandpa said, "Hey, that was stupid. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry for that." And I've never shared that with anybody. And I told him we've talked about each other in the or we've seen each other in the shop, and like thinking like, oh, that's crazy that like we've been talking about like, hey, how does this change for like future generations? But like, what about past generations that are so old enough to like recognize and try to start undoing some of the things that they've kind of inherently kind of woven into their family, into their that tapestry. And so kind of hearing those stories, how things are starting to kind of be undone from the past, but also how that's kind of setting things up for the futures, is a cool thing, and something that keeps us going, but also like really kind of adds to support.
So we're gonna do a quick live Q&A. I think it's Korina, Korina. I don't know if you want to turn your video and your sound on and ask your question, the panel. But if you're here, I would love that. If not, then I will read the question. No pressure.
Hi, I'm Korina. Thanks for hosting this, and very nice documentary. And I wish the Slim Pickins all the best. I have a question. Jahmicah, you had commented that with hesitation, you were asked, do you feel safe in the outdoors now? And you hesitated with your answer and said, yes, I do. I'm wondering what has changed for you to now feel safe in the outdoors. Thank you.
I think something that's changed for me is having something that I'm passionate about that drives me to the outdoors. And again, when I'm fly fishing, I guess kind of selfishly I'm doing that for me, but it's also something I can take people with me to enjoy and do. And again, at first people made space in the outdoors for me, and now I'm making space in the outdoors for other people. And that was really kind of affirmed just in Abdul. We were on that lake or on the river, and I said, you know what? I mean, I don't know the history of this body of water, but I've never seen this many Black people on this river at one time, and there was only 3 of us. And so like that was cool that like they were here with me, and I was being able to kind of teach them something that I was passionate about. It was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Korina. And the next person, I'm not sure if Louise, I know we're a little over time, and so I realize some people may not be in the chat still, but Louise also had a question, so I will give them a chance to turn on the video and unmute themselves. And if not, I will ask the question.
Hello, yes.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good, thank you. So I guess my question is, we're talking a lot about representation and diversification. There are a couple of organizations as well that are trying to facilitate this. Now, when we talk about playing in the outdoor industry, in your opinion, how important is ownership, right? There was a particular phrase that resonated a lot with me when you were talking about how important was ownership. So I just want, if you could express your opinion about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's our official mission statement, to diversify the outdoor industry as it pertains to ownership. It's, for me, it's everything. And it's everything because I don't see it. Shout outs to Mark of Intrinsic Provisions. We saw White Paul Running Mitts here as well. Like, Danica as well. Like, I mean, it's weird, but you can count on, I think maybe one hand, how many Black-owned organizations, or sorry, brands, shops that are out there. And so it's vital to what we're trying to do here. And I don't think you're really going to diversify the outdoors. You're going to be successful in that without diversifying the outdoor industry and diversifying its ownership.
Yeah, I would say, Luis, on that same note, I think it's kind of globally on any spectrum of any commercially available asset. I think having ownership shows that we can do it, shows that people from marginalized communities can own that blank. And I think that's the biggest point, and that's the biggest reason is like, there's not always somebody like Jahmicah who's willing to go against all odds. And so the more people who can do it, the more people most likely will hopefully fall into this idea of like, well, I can own this too, and I can have my own business, or I can run my own LLC and be my own director, or run my own outdoor shop, or be my own producer. So I think it's important, like in all spectrums, to have ownership in any marginalized community, to, you know, enforce other people to be able to do the same thing. And it's our time, we deserve it also. We all deserve it.
Thank you.
Abdul, did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Again, Jahmicah, Heather, and Justin took everything. So I feel like there's nothing more for me to add to what they said. They both brought up very valid points. Yeah. I'll go first, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to give you space for that. But something that I see as an editor in this industry when we're talking about contracts often, and this is for creatives, but I'm sure it also applies to businesses like Jahmicah and Heather's and Slim Pickins Outfitters, when we're talking about copyrights or rights and compensation for things, and like the idea of if you're, I'm thinking of like a TV host, or you have a show or something, whether you own your master tapes versus like the company that airs them owning your master tapes and everything that means. And so when you're doing contract negotiations, making sure you're able to keep your rights, and that continues making residual money for you and things like that. So I know we have a couple of creatives in the rooms, but that is something, and allies, if you are in these industries, that is something that you can help these creatives fight for, or help your peers fight for. And that's something that we talk about a lot. People know as an editor, I'm big on pay transparency in this industry, and I'm big on all of my writers and photographers keeping their rights. That's something that I know that is helpful to them, that they can monetize down the road. So like things like that, every industry has something. And so I would, I guess if I could implore you to think about how your industry functions and how you're able to dismantle some of these systemic minefields for people. So I'll leave with that. I know we've got to wrap up. Thank you all for your questions. This was such a great conversation. I'm glad we had the chance to sort of all get together, because I know these folks individually in some ways, but have not been in a room with it. And I'm very jealous that y'all spent time in Texas together, but no big deal. So we got to do it here. But I don't know if y'all saw, there are a couple of links in the chat side. So like the GoFundMe for Slim Pickins is there, Justin Focus, the website was there, Hoka, and all of the different brands and initiatives that were mentioned during this chat are over on the side there. And so, you know, there's the ability to make a donation if you all would like to continue supporting the work that Slim Pickins is doing. And there's actually going to be, so the illustration that was on the flyers that y'all saw virtually were done by, and Heather, you'll have to tell me his name, but your brother, correct?
My brother's name is Harrison Nowak.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be printed, and so you're able to purchase those, and all the proceeds will also go to the store. But I just want to thank you all for attending, and then thanks to the Outbound Collective and Hoka One One for making this event possible. I'll be around for a little bit in case you have questions and things like that. But I really want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to everything we had to say today.
Yes, thanks so much
for sticking around every
time. Yeah, for sure. This is such a cool experience, and the fact that like this still continues to happen. So thank y'all so much for, again, your time, your talents, your effort, and then everyone watching, thank you for investing your time to come on to this. So as we always say at the shop, act justly, live kindly, serve humbly, and adventure out.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.